Hey guys, and welcome to this week's episode of the Top Producing Zone podcast. I'm your host, Michael Jin.
And I'm your co-host, Shane Carvalho.
So today we have a luxury real estate powerhouse, Garth Ward, with us. Garth is the founder and broker of Park Place with over 140 agents. He has done over $1 billion in properties sold. He's a designated broker for over a decade now, and he's just been at the forefront in the world of luxury real estate. He's also the founder of Apex Agent, helping other agents take their business to the next level. So Garth, I know we've had to reschedule this a couple of times, so glad we can finally do this today, and we're super lucky and grateful to have you on with us.
No, I appreciate it. I'm excited to talk to all the listeners about the type of journey that it takes to get there. It's definitely, well, it is a journey. It's not something that happens quickly. It's not something that is the snap of a finger. And it's also not that I'm some sort of special person, and it's not that I'm pretty. I know a lot of people are listening to just audio. I'm not. I'm a very average looking dude. I don't come across my business just because of my looks or anything like that. There's a process, there's a system, and there's a framework of habits and things to do to actually make those types of results happen.
I will definitely echo that. But, for those of you that are listening to audio, like Garth is very humble. He is actually quite a good looking dude. Actually, not that matters, but I'm just calling that out there.
the wardrobe, Garth. I mean, obviously there's a lot of talent, but you can't discount the wardrobe, man. You always look sharp. I mean, I just one you stand out with your style.
One thing that I'll say about that, and I was always very intentional about the way that I dressed. And now, anybody that knows a little bit of my story, I know a lot of people here don't, but I started when I was 19 years old, and I had an extreme baby face. So who's going to trust a 19-year-old that looks like they're 16? Very, very few people. And ultimately, I also had no money, right? I had no money. I was literally paying for our apartment for my entire family since I was like 14 years old. And so when I got my license and I'd saved up enough money to, survive for a few months without a consistent paycheck to get into this business, I made sure to set aside about $500 for wardrobe. And at the time, that felt like absolutely everything to me. And what I did is I was very cognizant. I was like, I need to present professionally so that people take me seriously. So I went to H&M. I bought suits that were 38, even though I was sitting in a 36 jacket, for example. I got everything slightly too big for me. I got 2 pairs of shoes, a belt, like 5 shirts. And then what I did is I took those suits to Nordstrom and I had them tailored there so that they fit me perfectly. And once I did that and I was going into the office, people were like, wow, you're always dressed so good. And so one thing that I want to harp on a little bit is it doesn't take a lot of money necessarily to dress extremely well. Obviously, the suits that I wear now are very different. Like this one, I think was like $1,200, $1,300, but it's like custom and all that. But that does not change my ability or anybody's ability to go out and go get business or present themselves professionally. You could do that for like $120 for your outfit. I mean, I know people that buy hoodies for $120. You can go buy a whole suit for that technically. And so it's all about, perception and the way that you want to present. And I think that's really important when you're first getting going. And honestly, a lot of people that do a lot of business or start to do a lot of business, they really pull back on the way they present themselves, the things that they wear, and the way that they carry themselves as well. Things change over time. And for me, I've always tried to make it a point that it doesn't change for me because that's what helped me get to where I am. So I'm not going to change any of it. Just like when I tell everybody the roadmap to become successful in this business, I say, don't change the roadmap. And so if I have to tell everybody, hey, just do this and do this exactly, and then I go out and I change my own roadmap that got me where I am, I think that would be a little disingenuous.
I was just going to say, it is super important what you said about, how you dress, how you look, because, there's research that's been done that people form an impression of you, within the first couple of seconds, right? And typically within that duration, you haven't had a chance to even get a word out. And so what are people forming an impression about you on? They're forming an impression based on what they see. And so that's a super powerful message that you just shared. And I appreciate that. Shane?
Well, I mean, Garth, we're joking around. I didn't realize there was, I didn't realize where this all started. And so, I definitely don't want to downplay that. I mean, I didn't know that was the story. So no disrespect there. Because you always do look sharp, but I didn't, I kind of lightly, right? But no, that's one thing you touched on though, that was something I could relate to was that, at 19, I had the baby face too. Look, I still have facial hair. I grew facial hair to look older because I totally had a baby face, and I dressed with suit just like you. It's funny because I got a lot more casual during COVID, but I I've had a lot of health issues. I wasn't really fitting anything. Now I'm starting to fit in everything again, which is great. But I basically agree with you that you always got to present, right? You pick that level, you got to present, you got to be consistent. It's kind of like, perfect analogy is like when married couples complain about letting each other go, like they let themselves go, right? Oh, I got the girl now, so I could just like put on a bunch of weight or not care about myself. That's a disservice to your clients. Like, you got to be on point all the way through. And that's actually a good point. I've never even thought about it from the dress perspective, but that was valid.
Yeah. And for me, there's two separate things at play there. Number one, it's presenting a property in its best light. And so when I go into really high quality properties, one of the things that I mention, and almost every single time, people will mention the way that I'm presenting myself. They'll mention the way that I'm dressed. They'll mention something about it. And I just make a casual offhanded comment and it goes across really well. And I say something like this. I say, part of my job is to make sure that this is presented in a polished way so that it can be perceived as a really high quality product. And if I'm here looking amazing, it's only going to help accentuate the features of the property. And that really resonates with them. And the second side of that coin is it helps me attract business. A lot of people don't know this, but I actually attracted my number one sale. So I sold a deal at $21.7 million. And I got it because I was outside of my mother-in-law's house and I was just walking with my wife and our dog at the time. And we were going to the little dog park in the neighborhood. And there was a new development up the hill from us. And I was just, I didn't wear a full suit, but I was looking pretty good. I had the dress shirt on. I had the regular short, like the khakis. Like, I still looked like I was a professional of some kind. I wasn't wearing sweats or anything, right? And then I see a builder, the developer, right there. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's Charlie. And I just go, hey, Charlie, what's going on? He has no idea who the heck I am, right? And I just go, yeah. He's like, hey, how you doing? I was like, yeah, I'm doing well. Hey, I just had a quick question for you. He's like, what? I said, what are you doing with all that land up there? That's all I asked. And then he goes, I'm not sure. I might sell it. We might build the house out there. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it yet. I said, fair enough. Well, I really appreciate it. My name's Garth. I hope we get to talk in the future. And that's all I did. From there, I was able to end up selling a $21.7 million property because I got the information. I got him to open up to me about that. Had I looked like a slummy person, he probably wouldn't have even addressed my question, at least not authentically and in a real way. And when I got the real answer, that allowed me to go after that business. Ultimately, I didn't even put it on the market. I sold it to the behest of a lot of people off market because, I just identified a buyer. I went to the city. I got the plans. I got all the information. And then I just shopped for a buyer off the market for it anyways, and then brought them to the table. But, that was just another example of just looking good all the time can make a difference. I know a lot of people, they build their businesses off of just talking to somebody in a grocery store line, right? And it's like, are you really going to convey confidence if you're in that grocery store line and you're wearing like, I don't know, juvenile graphic tees or something like that? It's going to be a different conversation. And what I would also say is anybody wearing a name tag, stop. Like, if you're wearing a name tag that says realtor on it or something like that with your name, I did that when I first started too. And the reality is nobody, absolutely nobody will treat you like you are a high quality agent. Might you get people to comment or ask you how the market is? Yes, I did too. But the reality is how many of those people convert into clients? Very few. And how many of those convert into high quality, high price point clients? Almost none, because they're not looking for an agent that has a little name tag on their shirt when they walk everywhere. Because the reality is the highest quality agents don't do that. And it's almost like a beacon signal that you're new.
That's, that it's funny too, because that's also a standard of what the market was back then, right? Because this is my 25th year. I've been in the business for a long time. Everybody wore name tags. That's funny. I wanted to go back to what you were saying about the wardrobe too. You reminded me of something that just happened a couple months ago. I was at another bank that I don't bank at because I had to do something with some client's check or something. And people know me in the community, right? I've been here for a long time. And so anyway, I come in and I had gone to walk a nasty property that my crew's working on. And so I was wearing like jeans and boots and a hat and stuff. Anyway, I come to the counter and because I was totally like not even I just really was, this is how people get to know your standard. Like, I always expect to see you a certain way. And I dress professional as well. This lady that's known me, I hadn't seen her in a long time. She's like, oh, are you not in real estate anymore? I look at her. Some people just say the inappropriate things. She's more old school. She's just like, I'm like, oh, why do you say that? She's like, oh, you wear your dress. I'm like, like, I don't know. It was like a Friday late morning or something. It's like, holy crap. But that's impressive, right? When you set your standard and That's impressive. I mean, that literally just sums up what you just said. Like,
I've had it be okay. And this is the last thing, then let's move on from dress. But the last thing on this is I went to Costco one day, right? And this is, I can't believe this is actually true. But I went there and I was helping somebody move that day because he was in a weird situation, and I was helping him move. So I was looking scrubby. It was bad. Like I'm in like not even good sweats. I'm looking terrible, right? And I'm going up to Costco. I forget my Costco card. I don't know how, I don't know where it went, couldn't find it. So I start walking in, they're like, hey, where's your Costco card? And I'm just like, I don't have it. That's okay. Like I'm trying to grab one quick thing and whatever. And then they go, no, you have to go over to the other side and get a membership. And I was like, I have a membership. I'm an executive member. Like, I'm like, what are you talking about? And then they're like, no, you have to go that way. I was like, whatever. So then I started walking that way and I passed the middle membership table because I'm not going to freaking go get a membership. I already have one. Right. Yep. So I passed the table and I actually get grabbed by the front door person saying, no, you're not allowed to come in here. You have to go to this table or leave. And I was like, okay, all right, I'm just going to leave. I'm not dealing with this. Then anyway, I left. I went to Walmart or whatever to grab the thing that I needed. And then I went back home. This was later that same day. I was like, okay, my parents at the time, they were still living at I was still living at my house with them. And they were like, oh, we need some stuff, blah, 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 go to Costco. So normally I'm presenting well. Right. So I go in there, I'm wearing a full suit, the whole thing, and I walk straight through the door. It's the same person at the freaking door.
Oh my God.
I walk straight through. She doesn't even ask me for my card. I just walked straight through. Doesn't say a thing. And so I didn't want to let this go because to me, it's like you either do it every time or it's not a standard and you're discriminating. And so for me, I said, okay, no. It dawned on me when I was about 30 steps into the store and I was like, wait a minute, this is ridiculous. I wasn't even asked now that I'm presenting this way. So then I went over and I talked to the little manager person. I was like, hey, just so you know, you guys don't have an actual standard here, do you? Because I was stopped and freaking assaulted to leave the store 3 hours ago. And then I come in and I look a little bit different and I'm not even asked for my membership card. This is absolutely ridiculous. Either come up with a standard or there is a standard and this employee is absolutely not following it. So just so you know, that's what's going on. But I cannot believe that happened. And the reality is not only do you feel better when you dress up, you also get treated better. That's just the truth, right? Yep. You get the extra free cookie at Chick-fil-A. They let you in the Costco without your membership card. Like there's all these little, extras you get just by putting in a little bit of effort on top of what other people are doing. So my main standard is I'm not always going to wear a suit every day, but if there's a casual standard, I want to take it one step above that casual standard. If it's a business standard, I want to take it one step above that. If it's a high quality, more formal standard, I'm wearing a tuxedo, right? I'm just going to be like a little step.
Bar always a little bit higher.
Yeah, from what the norm is. And that's I think good enough without having to always be just out of place. But let's move on from dress. I think people are, we're not a style podcast here.
That could be an episode in and of itself. Style guides and how to dress up for certain occasions.
Oh my gosh, I could get into that. A lot of people don't know that. People don't know this, but I have over 70 colognes.
Oh, that's okay.
Wow. 70 designer and niche colognes. And what a lot of people don't understand is I don't just dress nicely. I dress for the audience that I'm going to meet. Say I have a meeting and a listing appointment. I know how old they are. I know what ethnicity they are. I know how long they've lived in the property. I know everything about them. So and then I correlate that to what season is it? How hot is it going to be there? So then I pick the way that I smell, how strong I smell, the outfit that I choose, the type of suit that I choose, the cut of suit that I choose, the shoes that I wear, the socks that I wear, all of it's dialed in to specifically speak to that audience so that they connect with me better.
Okay, this is really fascinating. So I don't know if we're going to move on beyond this, but so you have all those scents of colognes. How do you go about choosing them when you're so when you buy them, what are you looking for? You're looking for a description of the scent and you feel okay, this particular thing is going to work better for, this demographic or these types of buyers, or how do you go about thinking of that?
So that's what I did at first. It was trying to get different profiles and look at colognes. And I don't want to get too nerdy about this, but I get really in depth on all of this. But I even pick different watches that I wear. I'm telling you, it's very specific per person. But when it comes to cologne, you have a top note, a heart note, and a base note. And so what happens is when you first spray it, it smells one way, then it smells a different way about a couple minutes later, then it smells a different way about 30 minutes later. And so what I do before I buy any purchase is I spray it in 3 touch points, and then I let it sit. I smell it at first, then I let it sit a few minutes, smell it again, let it sit another 30 minutes, smell it again, have another person that's near me ask what the sillage is like. How strong is it? How far does it project? Because all of those things are different, right? If you want something to be more in your face, you need a larger projection. You need a larger, area around you of people who can smell it. And then the question becomes, what types are you looking for? If it's hot, you want blue fragrances. You want lighter fragrances. You want fresher, cleaner fragrances. If it's more in the winter months, you're going to want something more spicy, something a little bit more amber filled, something a little bit more date night feeling, right? And so for me, when it's an older person, I always go back to older fragrances because they actually remember older coding of fragrances. So a lot of people don't know this, but fragrances change over time, even the same fragrances. So there's a different ambroxan smell to the new fragrances that have come out. And it's very different from what things smelled like 20 years ago. So what I do is I make sure to find niche fragrances that were made before that still have the same actual combination that you can buy that makes them remember things that they actually like to smell. You'll notice old people do not like the smell of the new fragrances. They like the smell of the old ones. And so I'll correlate that with kind of what I end up wearing. And then, if they're older, I'm going to have lighter application, so it's not as in their face. If they're younger, I'll have deeper application. If if I can tell quickly that they're more party centered or, not as corporate, I will put on more, and I'll put on things that have larger sillages and punch you in the face a little bit more with a little bit more sweetness, maybe some vanilla in there. And so I just make sure to speak to what I believe they're going to already like. That way I smell good to them. I look good to them. I look like somebody that they would actually hang out with. I look like a person that would like if one of their friends happen to dress up and like whatever and smell good, that would be me. That's my goal with the whole process.
I mean, that's ingenious because you're not like talking about forming that first impression. Like you're not just hitting one sense, you're hitting multiple senses all at once. It's the visual sense, right? It's what they smell, and then obviously what they see, and then finally you kind of hit it out of the park, so to speak, by what they hear, right? And how you present yourself to them in the initial conversation. That's awesome.
And there's a couple other things to that too. Like a lot of people don't understand that I also have a truck, right? I have a Ram 1500, and I do that because if I'm meeting older men or I'm meeting developers or I'm meeting builders, I'm not rolling up in not a truck. I'm going to go up in a truck. They identify with that. I'm also not wearing dress shoes. I'm wearing boots. Like I'm also not wearing dress pants. I'm wearing jeans with a jacket. It is a totally different setup versus, I'm meeting a regular family. Great. I'm going to take the Navigator, right? It's totally different everything. I'll also talk slightly different. My cadence will change. The tonality that I give the clients will change. If their tonality is quick and their cadence is quick, I'm going to be quick. I'm going to have quick cadence. I'm going to have a lot of vocal range. If it isn't and it's really reserved, I will also be really reserved. I will say if you do have 2 agents working the same deal, it becomes very helpful to pick one person that will be a chameleon and the other that will take the other. And so what I used to do with my business partner, Austin, is we would quickly identify, oftentimes there's 2 sellers in a situation. And what we would do is we would identify who's the person that is more outgoing. I would typically take them because I would handle that better. And then who's the person more reserved, he would take them. And then our entire job was to focus separately on the different people. And for example, that deal that I was telling you about that fell It was cash. That deal was a record-setting property in a city that had never sold for that. Nothing in that entire area has ever sold for that much money. And I'd never sold a house in that entire city ever before. And I ended up winning it because I gave attention to not only the person that was the loud one, I gave the attention to the person that wasn't the loud one, that was the decision maker ultimately.
I was going to say,
I competed with like 20 agents for that, but I can guarantee you. So like the wife is definitely the one that was the driver in that relationship. relationship, at least the driver in communication. But the husband was the reserved, quiet, calculating one that I'm sure most agents gave zero or almost no attention to. Whereas I understand that that's the person that's not getting attention from anybody. So I need to give that person more attention, because ultimately when they get together and they're talking, that person usually carries a lot more weight than people understand.
It's interesting because this is a good topic we fell into. This is actually, I know this is, we're not gonna be able to get, through what we want to get through. We'll do a part 2 or whatever. But yeah, it's interesting what you're saying, because this takes me back to, obviously earlier we were talking about when you're younger, trying to be more mature, more professional and everything else. But the other thing too is you're talking about matching energy and everything else. I started out of college as a mortgage broker. And essentially what I found was dressing really nice and everything is that sometimes it was intimidating, because I helped a lot of, hardworking people that worked in agricultural labor, et cetera. Like, I didn't realize till later on that it was very intimidating for them to walk in. You're wearing a suit and it was just too much. And so I started learning how to match the energy, kind of like what you're saying. And it has to do with dressing, what you're talking about in your cadence and everything. I mean, that's brilliant. And I did adapt to that. And I definitely, like, my intuition and knowing who the drivers are, like, I've gotten really good at that. But how early in your career did you figure that out?
So I was probably about 6 months in. I started using fragrance back before I was even in real estate, because I understood that could generate a lot of different opportunities. I was still single back then, right? Like, I wanted to figure out, like, how do I,
what kind of opportunities, Garth?
and so the realities is, like, I figured I even created my own. I would create combinations of different fragrances so that nobody would ever smell the same as me. So no one can smell the same as me. So if you like that smell, you need to be near me. And what an
exclusive scent. Sign me up.
Yeah, I make them all the time. I take two separate designer scents and I come up with, like, the amount of sprays and where they should go to create a good correlation between the two and a good combination. I do that all the time. But what I'll say is this: when I identify that I've missed that mark, and I've done it before, I change it on a dime. So for example, you might have seen on my social media, Isaiah Thomas is my client, right? So NBA All-Star, that guy, he's awesome. But when I first met him, I show up in a suit. I'm an advisor. We're selling the most expensive property in the city ever. It's a record, absolutely beautiful property. The first time I meet them, I'm in a full suit. I talk to them. I hang out with them for a little bit. We're doing a home inspection, all that. I'm just like, okay, we're doing a walkthrough, and I could just tell the vibe was off. So the next time I meet with them, I don't pull up in the other car. I pull up in the i8, right? I'm wearing a regular scoop neck tee with a leather jacket, a necklace on. I've got designer pants. I've got specific shoe, like some like baller shoes on. And I'm just like, hey dudes, hey guys, what's up? What's going on? Like, totally change on a dime, because the reality is that's not what they cared for. That wasn't them. And if that's not what they wanted, then I'm not going to give that to them. Like, I'm not always the suited up, like, stuffy person, but like, if that's what people expect out of their advisor, I'm going to give it to them. If they don't expect that, sure, I'll take the mask off and just hang out like a regular person. That's fine. But anyway, let's hop into whatever you're looking to do. Let's get into some more tangible topics that people could use. These are intangibles, but they make a big difference in businesses. Just straight up, they do. No matter what you're looking for, if you're door knocking, if you're meeting random people on the street, they do make a massive difference. But let's get into some tangibles you're looking for.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I was just going to say, like, to wrap this up is, like, I think this is important for our listeners too, because I think a lot of these things just people in general don't think about. They think about, okay, what am I going to do, when I get to an open house? Like, where do I need to put my signs? They think about, like, very detailed, like, tactical things versus, like, you're out here playing chess and everybody else is playing checkers. So I love that. So Garth, like, in terms of the tactical and, like, real estate, you recently actually made a big move across the country after being so established in the luxury market in the Seattle area. So I guess a couple of questions, like, what inspired you to do that? And then also, like, how did you go about approaching, you already had an established market. How did you go about approaching getting, building out a new business in a brand new market?
Yeah. So So couple things. I ended up moving over to the greater Memphis market. I don't know how long I'll be here, but we like it. And what happened was this. I used to own a brokerage that I built from the ground up to 4 offices. And, we had well over 100 agents at the time we were owners. And we were looking at expanding across the entire country. We didn't know exactly the next places we wanted to go, but we wanted to identify markets that had pretty good homes, lots of transactions, not as many agents, bad marketing by the agents, like all sorts of stuff that we were trying to identify. And where we wanted like the future of the market to be going on an upward trajectory in an undervalued area and no luxury firms. That's kind of what we were looking for. And we identified like 6 places. We'd gone to multiple of them a couple times. My wife ended up coming with me to this one a couple times. She really liked it. And then we ended up making the merge from our entire brokerage to EXP. And then my wife looks at me and she says, wait a minute, you're virtual now. You don't have to have all these, you don't need all these physical locations. You're closing them all down. Is there a reason we have to be here? Can we move? And I said, well, I mean, there is no reason that we have to be here, I guess. I mean, we could go there. And she's like, yeah, let's move there. And so I said, okay, let me figure out exactly where I want to be if we move there. And so then I said, let me take into consideration everything. What's the long-term play? What's the investment ability? What's the cash on cash return of investment properties? How much can I pick up a door for? For example, I could pick up a door for $23,000 here. That's absolutely insane. I could get a 65 unit apartment complex for 1.8 million. I mean, you got to think about that. Like that's impossible to find somewhere else. And then I said, well, I need to also find and make sure that where we go has large appreciation opportunity. So I made sure, okay, great. There's the largest car manufacturing plant coming 15 minutes away. The new Ford plant is 15 minutes away from me. The biggest one that's going to be created in the United States. That's only 15 minutes away from where I am. And I'm in the city that's closest to it that's established with good schools. And then you see right after that, Buc-ee's is placing the first Tennessee location 3 minutes from my house. You think that's a coincidence? No, they don't. Why would Buc-ee's, after not having any Tennessee locations, pick this spot to put their first Tennessee location and not somewhere in Nashville? It's because of the investment opportunity and what's happening based on the manufacturing jobs that are coming. And then right after that rolls out Elon Musk investing over $6 billion to place his supercomputer here. And so you look at the infrastructure of FedEx being the headquarters here, Kellogg's being here, all the different things that are happening. To me, it was a ridiculously undervalued market with agents that just didn't know what they were doing. So long story short, we moved over here. I spent about 9-10 months just focusing on the growth of my team, growth of the organization, building up some tech products, building out my one-on-one coaching plans and all that. And I said, you know what? I'm tired of agents saying that it's hard to do business. Because agents keep saying that right now. And this was 3 months ago. I said, agents keep saying that it's hard to do business. That can't be true. And I said, wait a minute, I have a very unique opportunity. I'm in an area where nobody knows me. I don't have any referrals. I don't have any friends. I don't have any family. I don't know the neighborhoods. I don't know anything about this place. Right? I'm basically a new agent again. When do you get that opportunity? Right? And I said, well, let me just prove it again. I'm just going to do the exact roadmap that I tell everybody to do. Do my open house strategy. I'm going to do my farming accelerator strategy. I'm going to do my lead platforms. I'm going to do the cold calls the way that I say to do them alongside the farming. I'm going to do online marketing. I'm going to just do the exact framework that I teach agents to do. And, 3 months later, I've closed a few different properties. And like I said, I have 13 pending properties and 5 listings in this new market in a 3-month period of time, effectively being a brand new agent with absolutely no track record in this market whatsoever. And I think anybody could duplicate that as long as you actually put in the hours, put in the work, and follow a strict roadmap. It's not like I knew that when I first started. When I first started, I did marginal like everybody. I just worked more than everybody else. And then I did everything to split test what works and what doesn't in the market centers for each aspect of prospecting in the agent's career. Like, how do you maximize your open houses? How do you maximize farming in a way that converts? How do you maximize lead source generation systems? And I just sat down and I worked all of those systems to figure out exactly how they should work. And once you understand how they should work, just implement it, which is why I have so many of the people that end up working with like my coaching or whatever, that maybe they haven't sold any properties or they've sold a couple properties and never gotten a listing or whatever. And I just sit down with them and we do like one-on-ones every week or whatever.
Yeah.
And then very quickly, you see a massive shift in their entire business, because when you're forced to be accountable to doing the work, and then when you get that roadmap, and then if I tell people, hey, if you're not going to do the roadmap, I'm going to fire you from coaching. We're not going to work together anymore, right? And so it's like, okay, you got to do the work. Here's the roadmap. Do this. Do exactly this, and don't change it. And it's weird how people start to see the results. I think the biggest problem in the industry, though, is it's either one of two things. One, agents they don't know what to do, so they do nothing, or they're too perfectionist, so they do nothing and they stagnate, or they're lazy. And then there's alternatively the fourth option, which is one that nobody ever wants to say. And the fourth option is it's not cut out for them. And the reality is this business is not for everybody. It is difficult. It is hard. It is going to knock you in the teeth multiple times, and you have to put your pants on every single day anyways. And you have to do the daily tasks that help the business grow. And nobody's going to tell you to do it. And if you're not going to be the person that tells you to do it, you need to find somebody that will, because the reality is nobody's going to hand you business in this industry. You have to be the one that goes out and generates it. So if you're not doing something every single day to move the needle, you're actually going backwards, and you're getting closer to an early retirement from this business.
Yeah, those are truths that I share all the time, because obviously I'm a mentor as well. And I was just going to say that the other thing that, a lot of these agents, less experienced, or maybe agents that, just haven't done as much, is, they want that instant gratification. And so you see a lot of them that are not willing to be, because what it is, I tell them, like, be consistent every day, even when you're not seeing the results. It's just human nature. It's really hard. It's like defying human nature to like want to continue when you're not seeing a result. But option 4, unfortunately, I've had to break that to a few people in the last couple of years. And look, it's a disservice not to be honest with people, right? Yeah. Especially when you've been doing this for a long time and you've worked with a lot of people. But yeah, those are all truths that I live every day as well as a mentor. And it's unfortunate because you want to bring everybody along. And I've learned during my career to just understand that only 10% are going to make it. I can't just try to drag everybody across the finish line. If people don't want to help themselves, you can't help them. That's just the truth. But congrats though on really breaking into that new market and doing so well. I mean, it doesn't surprise me, being what you did on the West Coast, but I've heard a couple stories of different people that have gone into brand new markets and had a lot of success. Do you think that you could actually teach some of these agents to have the same success in a brand new market? Is it doable?
Oh, absolutely. Anybody can do it. I mean, it's, again, maybe I am pretty. Shoot, I don't know. But the reality
realization on this podcast, I love it.
you guys can try to unearth my comedian career. I was on stand up, but what's really interesting to me is that anybody in any market can do it, as long as you're not the 1 out of 100 that really shouldn't be in the business whatsoever. But if you have the ability and the capacity to do business anywhere, you could do it anywhere. And that's the thing that I harp on. The skills never leave you. And if you put in the reps, you always have those skills. And so it's not fair to say that I was necessarily new. I was just new to that market, right? I was just new to those people, but I understood the process and I followed that process. And anybody that follows the same process is going to get the same result, right? I still don't know those people. I didn't know those people when I found them. But ultimately they worked with me because I had a process around it. And one of the things that I think everybody should be cognizant of, especially right now, is make sure you're ahead of the curve, right? Be ahead of where the market is going, not be reactive to what the market will do. And so when you look at things like the change in media, how I started to build my business is I started doing video earlier than a lot of the agents. Almost every agent was doing video behind me on listings. Then when they were doing video, I was doing shorter form video and lifestyle video and commercial video and different things. I was branding properties. I was using different tactile materials for my properties when I was selling them. I was using different things over and above what the other agents were doing. Right now, I think the biggest thing in the headlines is clearly what's going to happen with buyers. And I think, unfortunately, there's going to be probably a 20% drop off of the people that actually pay for buyers agents. But the reality is this: does not matter what market center you are in. Every single form that I have read, and I've read over 7 now in different markets in different areas, and almost every single one of them with those buyer's agency agreements does allow a spot to check a box that says that the buyer is actually directing you to specifically say that the offer is contingent on the full compensation payment of the seller. That's in every single one that I have read. And so to me, even though people are really weary about things, I think the reality is this: as long as you're an agent that can properly articulate your value, demonstrate what you're bringing to the table for those buyers, and actually bring a presentation to the table, it is mind-blowing to me that people have not been doing buyers presentations at all. I cannot believe that. I've been doing buyers presentations since I was literally in my first year in the business. I had a buyer
crib. In your crib.
Yeah, in my crib. I was wearing a diaper doing buyer presentation. Not really. But literally back in 2013 and every single year of all of my entire business, I've been doing buyer's presentations with every single buyer that I've ever worked with. And it is surprising to me to learn that the average agent does not do that. They don't sit and even explain the process. They don't sit and explain what's next. And I think that's a large problem. It's not just a problem for compensation and lawsuits and NAR stuff. It's a problem for the utilization of your own time. Like I look at this and I talk to so many agents and they'll tell me, oh, I had to look at 600 properties for this client. I looked at 300 properties for this client. I've worked with them for 7 months. You're not working for them. You don't have a process. What are you talking about? It honestly makes me angry that agents have the gall to even attempt doing basically nothing and expecting the buyer to work with them. When you go through my process and I break it down very specifically, I say, here's a buyer's consultation. We go through everything. Then I say the next step is we have a defining the criteria moment. We break down everything that you're looking for. We pull up the entirety of the MLS. We do a filtering process where we filter through every single property multiple times over it again. And after we do that, we go through every photo of every property and we go through every floor plan of every property before we even hit the ground. Every time we've done that filtering process, I sit somewhere between 5 and 10 properties that are actually left that they would consider buying, fits every box that they actually want, fits within their budget, fits within the geography and the school district and all the things that they want. And that's it. And I say, this is the simple process. We're going to look at all of these properties. We're going to look at all of them. At the end of every single showing, I'm going to ask you one simple question. Did you like it? After the first one, and then after that second showing, it's going to be a slightly different question. I'm going to say, which house did you like better, this one or the first one? And I'm going to do that over and over again. Do you like this house better or whichever house you said was your favorite still? All the way till we're done. The one that you like as your favorite is the best option in the entirety of the market. Either we pursue this one or we do absolutely nothing until we find something that is almost exactly like this one with the subtle reason that you are not buying it today. Right. So it's like, oh, this is perfect, but this. OK, great. If you don't want to write it on this property, we're not going to view any properties ever again until we find a house that is exactly this without that. Then we will look at it. That way, I'm not searching for 500 properties, going on a random tour, driving 20 minutes to show one house, and then they find out they don't like it, driving all the way back and wasting hours of my time. It's an absolute waste. But I can tell you, if you do that specific process, 90% of the people will buy a home on the first tour, almost invariably. And I also place the favorite property or the one that I think they're leaning towards as house number 2 every single time, even if it's not justified based on the tour duration, right? Like if I have to drive slightly further and it messes up the timeline, I put what I think their best house is going to be in house number 2. So I can say it over and over and over again to them to reiterate that is their favorite house. Because I already think that it's their favorite house. Then we go to house number 2. Which house do you like better? I like house number 2. Then you go to 3. Which one do you like better? Number 2. Then you go to 4, 5, 6, 7. And then they keep saying house number 2. And all I have to say is, seems like we keep coming to house number 2. Want to figure out what an offer looks like? And they will say, sure. What do you think we should do? Almost every single time. I actually just did a video on this. I just had a buyer do my exact process. We're closing in a week here in a new market. I did the exact process. And guess what? She's buying house number 2.
Well, and I'll say this, to me, there's 2 important points here. One is it for you as the agent, for your clients, right? It really brings them full circle. Like listening to what you just said, because, we talked about at the beginning of this podcast, the first impression that you form with them, both visually, what they smell, what they see. And then now when you take them through the process and they find it, that closes the deal for them on future deals with working with you, right? Because they're like, okay, so my first impression about Garth was correct. He's a professional. And now I've seen what that professionalism looks like. The second part I was going to say is it is a huge problem. And I feel like it's a huge problem with buyer's agents here in the Bay Area, especially. Like a lot of agents just go and say, hey, flat fee, give me $2,000, I'll write an offer for you. I'm not going to show you anything. Or even just last week, I was with a friend, and I was hearing a story about a friend that was working with another agent. She stopped wanting to work with that agent. She wanted to work with me because she was like, that agent she didn't want to do anything. I had to pull up my own disclosures, look at the homes myself. And to me, it's like you as an agent, if you do that, it creates a bigger problem for not just yourself, but all other agents down the road, because you wonder why people don't think highly of certain real estate agents, right? And it's just like you're you're accelerating the spiral of death, where it's just like you create this impression where for the consumer, it's like, oh, real estate agents, they're a dime a dozen. There's really no value added.
I hear that a lot, Michael.
It absolutely is, right?
Yeah, I hear that a lot. And well, I was just gonna say, I mean, just quickly, this whole thing about staying ahead of the curve and everything else, it's interesting because I'm on the listing side 80% of the time, but then I'll help I'm helping my sellers now buy because they really enjoyed the experience with me in selling. There are new clients that I interviewed for the listing and I got it and sold it in 3 weeks. We had prepped it, listed it, sold it, closed. They're like, we can't believe that we just met you 3 weeks ago and we already have our money in our hand. But anyway, they liked me so much, they wanted me to help them buy on the peninsula. And so it's interesting because we found a house they really liked. This is the first buyers in probably 2 years that I had to go out a second day to look at property. Usually it's the first 3. I was like, and I don't know if I told you, Michael, but I was just tired because like Sunday went and looked at 5 properties. I haven't shown this many properties the whole year, I don't think. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is that the property they really liked, and this was my first experience with this whole lawsuit thing, right? It was listing 0% to the buyer, and they always noticed that stuff. They're like, the other day, like, this one only offers 2%. Is that, we want to make sure you get paid. I'm like, I love these people. They're like, they want to make sure I get paid. And like, so then Sunday night, they like this house, but they're like, yeah, but it's 0. We're not going to offer because they're not going to pay. They don't want to pay you. And like, that's just not right. And, but we want to make sure you get paid and we could pay you or whatever. But they almost were not going to take the house they wanted because they were so concerned about my time and my value that they wanted to make sure I got paid. And, lo and behold, the seller was offering, 2% to the buying side. And so we just put a commission agreement with our offer. We made an all cash offer last night. But, that was my first run at that. And it was interesting because they saw the value, not only from the listing process, but what you're saying, I don't have like an official buyer presentation, but I counsel them at the very beginning. I talk to them about the process, what it looks like, and what all the steps are. And, you build value from day one and you explain the whole process because like these people have bought a couple houses in their life, so they had some experience, but a lot of these buyers, they've never bought, or it's been so many years, they don't know the process. And so, yeah, from the listing side, I have a lot of frustration with some of the buyers agents because they do give us a bad name because they're not working hard. Now the buyers are finding the properties online and literally just asking people to write an offer. But then, all the litigation and stuff, especially in California, is for non-disclosure. There's a lot of issues because people didn't do their homework,
Oh my God. Really, there's a big issue. And to me, this is something that I make very clear in my initial conversations with the buyers. And I say, right now, my job is opposite from what it used to be. 20 years ago, you would go to an agent so you could get access to homes. My job today is to basically filter all of the BS information out there in the world because there's a lot of false information, inaccurate information, and way too much noise to settle in on a decision. So for me, I say we do a filtering process. I get rid of all the noise. I tell you the only things to focus on. I deal with the minutia, and you don't just hire me. You're hiring me and my process. And to me, that's a big difference because everybody says, oh, real estate's always a roller coaster. You talk to an agent that says something like that. That's because they don't have a process for the deals. That's because they don't have a specific workflow of how things should work. And if you don't have that, you're going to have varied results. And ultimately, if you're an agent listening to this, you need a process because it will not only help you be more efficient with your clients, it's going to increase the referrals that you get from those clients. Because if you have a specific dialed in process that you take everybody through and you make it clear that this is my process, then everybody knows if I send Sarah over to Garth, Sarah's going to have the exact same experience as I had. Like if you think, hey, I had a pretty good experience, but I don't think the next person would, you're not going to refer the agent because you're not referring me to Sarah for my gain. You're referring me to Sarah so you look good. And that's the truth about referrals. And so if that's the case, I need the person I worked with to really like me and the process and know that Sarah is going to get the exact same service, the exact same process that she got to make her comfortable enough to give me that referral. And so dial in a process if you don't have one. Make sure it's not too cumbersome for people to understand, and make sure that you're a filtering funnel, a filtering operator, not just a person that gives information and says, yeah, go look at doors. Like that is a complete waste. And personal opinion is if you're doing that, you don't deserve any money. Somebody should just go buy a house themselves.
Just go to the open house. Here's the open house. Go to the open house.
Work with the listing agent. Yeah. Just work with the listing agent at that point. Honestly, there needs to be process. There needs to be negotiation. There needs to be something that agent's bringing to the table. And honestly, that's always been that case. That's always been the case. Anybody who's been like like riding the gravy train of doing absolutely nothing, writing a contract for doing nothing, getting paid for basically doing nothing the entirety of a contract at all. I'm sorry. I think that's always been wrong. I've been saying that since I started in this business. When I did, I had a managing broker. His name is Michael Ford, and he's an amazing guy. One of the first days I was working there was within the first month. We went to the whiteboard and he put a big old 3 on it. And he said %. And then what he said was, why? And everybody just kind of sat there like, what? Like, why? Why is it this? And so one of the things that I also do, and that this isn't for everybody, but even on the listing side, I have variable commission rates, right? I've charged everywhere from 1%, depending on the price of the property, if it's really expensive, all the way up to, I've had deals where I'm charging 10%, 15%. But on a regular deal, I've had as much as 4% on my side, like on a $400,000, $500,000 deal, because it's not just like, why do you charge this? For example, if I'm charging 3% on 500,000 and I'm charging 3% on $1 million and I'm doing the exact same services, why in the world am I charging somebody double the money if I'm doing the exact same service? How does that make any sense, right? To me, it doesn't, right? So when you delve into the math of things, it's like, for me, I have a standard like of how much I'm going to want per deal just to work with me, get my attention, get my time, get my contract nuance and everything else. Then it becomes how much marketing and advertising and exposure are you looking for? And based on what I'm spending, based on that marketing effort, the marketing time and the extra things that I'm adding, that changes the variability of the rate. If you want less marketing and advertising and all of that for your property, I can do it for less expensive, sure. If you want more and more than maybe your property even warrants, I can do it for more expensive, sure. I could do it. I don't necessarily advise it, but people ask me to do it all the time. And so it doesn't have to always be this ironclad. I've won so many listings from agents that say, I just charge 3%, when in reality, it's like they always do a video or something like that. And, it's a $1 million deal. And the sellers go, well, to us, the video is just so unimportant. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, and I was like, okay, but what do you think about this, this, and this? They didn't even want a 3D tour. They made it clear, like, we don't even want a 3D tour. We don't want a video. We don't want this. And I'm like, okay. And what are you looking for? They're like, well, we want somebody to do it for 2.5, and we want photos, and we want a competent person, and we just want nice flyers. And I was like, I mean, if an agent can't get nice flyers, do good photos, and negotiate for somebody on $1 million deal,
what are they doing?
$25,000, I don't know what to do for them. Like I just, right. And so it becomes a question of just like, what's your value, and determining what that is based on the amount of things that you're giving people. But it's having a process around it too, and not arbitrarily doing it. And that's why I do it preemptively. This is one last thing here on commissions is I'll have agents that will also say, I charge 3%. And then they don't explain why that is at 3%, for example. And then they'll say, well, will you do it for 2.5? And they say, yes. Okay, but why? So you arbitrarily were going to charge me an extra 0.5%, but because I asked, you're going to do it for 0.5% less? Could I just ask for another 0.5% less? What is going on here? It doesn't make sense. There's no rhyme or reason to it. They just, because I asked, and so you said yes. And so for me, it's like, no, I have packages that are pre-designed based on this price point. And then do you want this package, this package, this package? If you want this in this package, I could maybe do that. And then I'm talking about services versus packages, not just arbitrary numbers that are pulled out from the sky.
Yeah, it's super important to kind of reflect on that. Ask yourself the question, why? Because it forces you to your point, think about your value, what it is you provide, because then it helps you to articulate it to your clients much more clearly.
Well, you're educating them too, though, in that process, because that's the thing, especially if they never sold. I mean, people don't understand, and for us, like, go ahead, Michael.
Oh, no, I was going to say, not only are you educating them, you're also educating yourself through the process, because you can figure out then within your business, okay, am I truly giving the right amount of value to my clients? Are there any gaps in my business that maybe I need to think about and I need to implement in my roadmap? To me, it's like, I agree with you, Shane, and I feel like it's two ways. So I'm just going to, Garth, this has been just a truly fascinating conversation, and I wish we can go longer, but I just in the interest of time, I'm going to wrap up by asking the question that we normally ask all our guests. And you've covered a lot of this stuff. So I think, I have a feeling your response to this is going to be a recap of all the great information you provided today. But, the one question we ask all our guests is, if you were starting a real estate production business today, how would you go about doing it from the ground up? Knowing everything that you know and that you've learned in your career.
Okay. I think today it would be slightly different than what I did, and slightly different than what I did even in this new market. If it was me, the first thing I would do is establish a authentic and truly unique brand and a truly unique image around everything that I am and make it very niche. The market's so saturated with a lot of noise. Make your market niche, make your brand niche, and then make sure that it is high quality. That would be step one. After I dial in a very specific and unique niche brand, at that point, I would get onto social with that brand, with video. Alongside that, I would start doing proper farming techniques, assuming you already understand how to do listing presentations by, like, you get it.
Yep.
Now it's just trying to get the clients. And then the goal would be farming techniques in total saturation. Because again, you're new and the lead systems aren't going to be as popping and you might not have money. And so for me, I would do the farming that correlates to my open house strategy and do them both at the same time. And to very 10,000 foot view of what that looks like, it goes like this: flyer, 2 days later, phone call, 2 days later, email, 2 days later, door knock, 2 days later, ads go out to those, all of those people, because you're pulling those emails, and all of those get put into Meta and pay-per-click, and all of those are being retargeted everywhere on every platform that they're ever seeing for that neighborhood forever. And then you correlate that to my open house strategy, where you're holding 8 open houses every single weekend. Because this is one of the biggest things that I tell any new agent. If you're holding 8 open houses a weekend, you are doing what effectively the average agent is doing in 2 to 3 months in one weekend. You are getting more reps in one weekend than the average agent does in a quarter of a year. And the reality is this: if I talk to almost any agent, if it's not a friend or a family member, the first sale of like a home for them is almost always an open house. And it takes them like a year and a half before something like that happens. But let's break down how much, what the math of that looks like. Usually like 50 or 60 open houses later after they start their career. So why don't you just do those 50 to 60 quicker, get competent quicker, get more toe-to-toes quicker, understand more floor plans quicker, understand pricings quicker, understand neighborhoods quicker, and then you have a very firm grasp on everything. And then if any property pops up in that farm that I already mentioned, you are holding that property open. And now you have another reason to reach out to everybody in that whole community on top of the open house strategy. And then on top of that, try to get on top of a lot of different lead source systems that are completely free that you pay for referral fees on the back end. So I would do all of that mixed with a unique niche brand online presence. And I don't mean like with a home as a logo. I'm talking truly unique. Like make it specific. Like I don't know what it is, but like I know people that, I don't know if you've ever heard of like the tattooed realtor. Like you've never heard of like people that are like just you've really dialed it in. Like I know agents that are really into motorcycles. Like that's their thing. Like I know one time I helped an agent build a niche brand around Dungeons and Dragons. And my point is there is no agents going after the Dungeon and Dragon community. Right. And so the point is if you can really identify who your tribe is, like you're going to win in that area because you attract what you are. And if you're truly authentic about it, you're going to win better. And then what you do is you do that farming, you do the opens, you do the lead source system structure. Yeah. And if you do all of that in conjunction with each other, you should have 0 reasons why you're not starting to do business unless you don't have the right things to say when you get there. Because there's the framework. And there's like, how do you actually execute? And that's something that's a little bit different. That takes a little bit more time to learn, but you can start to learn it even yourselves just by putting in the reps.
Damn. like I got tired. That's the starting, but no, you're right. That was incredible. I like what you're saying about, basically the open house strategy, because, for a lot of newer agents, that's a great way to get leads. When you say 8 per weekend, are you stacking like hour and a half or 2 hour open houses, like 4 each day, or how are you doing it?
Yep. Hour and a half opens. You got 9 to 10:30, 11 to 12:30, 1 to 3:30, and 9 to 10:30, 11 to 12:30, 1 to 2:30, and 3 to 4:30 on a Saturday and a Sunday. And every house needs to be different. They can't be the same house. It needs to be 8 separate houses. They have to be marketed well. And ideally, if you're listening to this, try to make sure they're vacant. It makes the process way easier. It makes it much more seamless. You're not dealing with owners getting out of the property and them asking you about the property and all this other stuff. No, just try to make sure they're vacant, marketed decently, ideally somewhat recent on the market or a recent price reduction. If you can get 8 of those and you do that consistently, like you're even going to have conversations with clients that literally will say, I see you everywhere. you run into these same people like 3 times and they say, we keep seeing you everywhere. And all you have to say is, well, yeah, why aren't you working with me already? Like, this is not rocket science, right? If you're out here doing 8 times what the average agent's doing, you're going to have double, triple the results. Like, it's not even crazy rocket science. And you're going to grow. I've had agents that literally have sold 0 business in a year and a half, come in to implement just the open house strategy and then sell multi 6 figures in the first year doing it just from open houses. And so the reality is just go out there and work harder, use a better framework and use a better roadmap. Follow my roadmap that I just laid out because it works.
Awesome.
Love it. So last thing, if listeners out there want to connect with you, want to get some coaching with you, what's the best way to reach out to you?
Yeah. So I would say go to Instagram's probably a great way. Just you want to listen to some of my agent training videos, those are the best ways. Obviously, if you're very interested in joining me and not having coaching or something like that, just type in parkplace.us. You'll get a lot of information about what it's like to work with me and not on a coaching level.
Awesome, brother. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Garth. I mean, shoot, we could make 2 or 3 episodes. There's so much thanks for touching on some of these topics that we never really dive into. They just like the whole dress, the way we started, that rolled us into a good thing.
I want to deep dive into cologne because the way that you were talking about it reminds me of like a sommelier talking about wine. So
Bruh, you have no idea how deep I can get into this stuff. And I'm not joking you. I'm not just saying like, oh, what do you have? I have, like people will say, what do you wear? And you'd be like, oh, I have Dior Sauvage. No. I'm talking about like Parfums de Marly Herod, Creed Viking. I'm talking about like Victory from Invictus. I'm talking about like just random the Most Wanted by Azzaro, like Prada L'Homme for a corporate day, Prada L'Homme Intense for a more like date nighty corporate event. Like there's a billion that like I could line them up. Like I've done some stuff. It's so many, dude. It's so many.
I learned a lot about you today, Garth. I didn't realize it was
too.
Dude, I even wear different watches depending on the people that I'm meeting. I'm not joking. I'll have I primarily wear. I typically choose between 3 because it usually hits most niches that I want to talk to. Like I'll wear the Omega Seamaster Professional if it's just like I'm not sure, but I want to feel kind of corporate. And if it's somebody older or somebody that I could tell has nice taste, I'll wear the Cartier tank. If it's not that, and I know they're like more sporty, I wear my my Tag Heuer because I have the F1 Red Bull Edition limited series Tag Heuer, and I'll wear that one. And so like I have other ones, but like those are like heavy in my rotation. I would say almost every single day it's one of those 3, and I'm picking based on those. And then I'm picking the shirt differently based on the way that I want people to feel, like because colors also invoke different emotion. Blue is trusting, red is aggressive, purple is neutral and sophisticated. There's different things that colors alone will do. And then I choose whether I'm wearing a tie or not based on age, what type of tie it is, based on ethnicity, all sorts of things. And this is like way too in depth, but the reality is I just want people to feel comfortable with using me as much as I possibly can. And to me, it works well. So
this is awesome, man. Yeah, I can't believe that I've never dove into any of this with you. Well, man, look, thanks so much for coming on. I think we should do a second episode. And
I mean, DM this guy. I mean, we don't even wait for a second. We'll do a second episode, but don't wait. Just DM this guy if you need your advice on cologne, whether it be for personal or professional.
Dude, yeah, I help so many people with their cologne game, man. It's ridiculous. I've legitimately done that. A lot of people don't know this, but I was actually so a couple random facts about me. Random fact time. So I was a comedian for a little bit. I did stand up. I was also on the radio, and I had a style segment where I helped guys learn how to dress better. And I literally just take a few. I was like, okay, I'm going to take 5 things that I could change about your outfit to make it better. I did a little segment on fragrance as well. But yeah, I'm happy to help anybody for that as well. And if people want, if people want to get involved with me, obviously they could direct message me. I have a couple options. Yeah. You could get one-on-one coaching for me, but I only have 2 seats left available because I literally spend an hour a week with those people. Or I have Apex community that is hard launching in a couple weeks. We have a completely free webinar that is launching for a couple hours with me and Sean Bautista. And that's a very inexpensive community to be a part of, to get all my tools, templates, and trainings in a group setting. And I think, if any of this is somewhat interesting to you and you want to delve deeper, just definitely send me an Instagram message on the Garth Ward.
Okay. Well, with that, Garth, appreciate your time, brother. And super, I'm glad that we were able to get you on and just spend so much time with you and just really dive in deep. I've learned so much about you. And like Shane was saying, a lot of new things too. So that was awesome.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me, guys.
All right.
Thanks, Garth.